I'm Beth Copeland with Georgia Christian Business Network, and we are putting God back in business. It's Wellness Wednesday. I am so excited. Hold
It's
on.
Wellness Wednesday.
Okay, I'm doing the double talk again today. I've got to figure that one out, okay? But I'm excited to be here today. This has been a very good month, a great discussion on such a powerful topic. I'm excited too because I get to work with some of the best therapists, counselors, licensed clinical social workers that are in the business, coaches. Yeah, I found out more and more behind the scenes. Yeah, this is just so wonderful to be privileged, and I'm so grateful to be on this platform with all of this power. But guess what? It's anointed. It's an anointed work that we get to do. And so I'm excited. We're missing, I'll let you know, Pamela Bridgeman Bartell. We call her our captain over here. Okay. She's out ministering and at a conference, facilitating probably about right now. So we send blessings over her and prayers headed in her direction. Today, our co-captain, okay, is Jessica Banner. And so I'm going to let her take the reins, kind of give you some backdrop, let you know what's been happening around here. Also, she'll allow you opportunity to meet Christine, and I'm going to get us live on some other platforms. Okay. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. Just welcome you guys today. Christine kind of prayed for us in today, and we were just kind of talking about how this month has really been tackling a difficult topic and an issue that can be rather challenging to sort through. We've been talking about narcissism and the relationship that someone with narcissistic traits may demonstrate, and how that plays out in relationships, and what does that look like, how they partner oftentimes with codependent relationships. And today we're going to be tackling a big thing. We're going to be talking about surviving a relationship with a narcissist or someone with narcissistic traits. But before we jump into that, I want us to go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'm going to let you start, Christine, and we'll go from there.
Hi, I'm Christine Oswald. I am a professional pastoral counselor, a professional Christian life coach, and a family pastor here in our church in Western Wisconsin. I'm the owner of Real Conversations Christian Life Coaching and Consulting, through which I use virtual platforms for women to get in touch with their purpose and their plan that God has for their life, and to continue walking forward in fullness. I have a master's in marriage and family therapy from Richmond Graduate School with specializations in Christian sex therapy and Christian spiritual formation, and have had the opportunity to work everything from inpatient and outpatient and substance abuse programs to churches, lay counseling, to inner healing prayer, and professional counseling with families, especially with pastors and missionaries and their wives, and with a specialization of people that have some personality quirks. So we're really glad you guys are here today. We really hope this is a grace-filled time where we get to see some hard things with God's eyes.
Absolutely. I can see where you and I have so much in common. I'm Jessica Banner. I have a master's degree in rehabilitation counseling, which emphasizes specialization with disability and career based off disability, but also professional counseling. I worked in the mental health field for about 10 years and did a little bit of everything. Also worked in a hospital, in the inpatient day treatment environment for about 10 years, ran the adolescent program, did psych and substance abuse work with adults and adolescents, did a little with the kids, kind of helped oversight, ran a VA contract out of there. We had a partnership with the VA at the time, and I was sort of the jack of all trades in our department there. And so I did make a transition about 6 years ago into pastoral counseling, where I helped start a pastoral counseling program in the church that I was attending. And from there, we were developing some pastoral, trauma-focused pastoral training and pastoral counselor training. and have helped be a part of that development and teaching. I myself still do some pastoral counseling, though I am slowly making some transitions and working on my first book right now. Just touched base with Miss Toby yesterday. She had to remind me of a few things. So, Miss Beth, I'll let you introduce you too.
Well, I'm Beth Copeland, and I am the executive director and the founder of Georgia Christian Business Network. We're putting God back in business, as I said in my opening. In addition to that, I'm also the founder of God's People Ministries, a 501c3 organization, and we do a gambit of things over there. Out of that also has been birthed our largest event of the year, which is God Golfing Girls. And we're just kind of coming off of that high and still floating on it, to be honest with you. It's just an annual event where we normalize love, is what I like to say, at that event for the entire weekend of therapeutic transformation and triumphant. In addition to that, I am the Atlanta director for the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs, and so many other opportunities. But the primary opportunity that I want to share right now is that GCBN sponsors this amazing platform for Wellness Wednesday and also for Transformation Tuesday that happened on yesterday. And it's such a wonderful opportunity, a great organization. And I say that and retain my modesty because it is God's doing. You know, the scripture, this is the Lord's doing, and it's marvelous in our sight. That's the way I feel about GCBN. It is the Lord's doing, because it's such an opportunity for people to get free, to be able to do better business, to represent God, and to walk out his best version of who he created you to be. So thank you for that opportunity, Jessica.
Absolutely. We're going to get started today. Christine, do you mind reading our scripture so we can reconnect with the scripture that's kind of been the umbrella for our topic this month?
Absolutely. So this is from the Amplified Bible, 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. But understand this, that in the last days, dangerous times of great stress and trouble will come, difficult days that will be hard to bear. For people will be lovers of self, narcissistic, self-focused, lovers of money, impelled by greed, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, and profane. And they will be unloving, devoid of natural human affection, calloused and inhumane, irresponsible, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, devoid of self-control, intemperate, immoral, brutal, haters of good, traitors, reckless, conceited, lovers of sensual pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of outward godliness, religion, although they have denied its power, for their conduct nullifies their claim of faith. Avoid such people and keep far away from them.
Thank you. Miss Beth, do you have our script?
No, do I?
Okay, then I'll read it.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
please.
I think we had this verse last week, but I'm not sure if we actually read it.
I think maybe at the very end.
Maybe. So I'm going to read it now. Galatians 1:10 says, "Am I trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant to Christ." And that was important last week because we were kind of talking about the diagnosis of, or not diagnosis, but we were talking about the behavior of codependency in those of us who may be living with that. And so I think that was a part of why we invited that other side. The scripture represents the other side of that relationship that often exists when we're dealing. It's not uncommon, like we talked about last week, to have someone who may be present in a relationship that may have some of those narcissistic traits, that it is possible on the other side that someone could be demonstrating some codependent traits. And Christine, I think you did a great job talking about how not everyone involved in those kinds of relationships may be codependent. But just want to touch base kind of over before we jump in this real fast, because I think we'll be heavy discussion today. But Just some things, highlights over the last couple weeks that each of you may want to share. Just one or two things from the last couple weeks that has stood out to recap.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that, we prayed a little bit beforehand about grace and truth. And I think the grace part is to know that all of this, whether it's narcissistic traits, narcissistic personality disorder, codependency, is based in trauma. And so I think that's the part that keeps us gracious, right? Is that people don't sign up to become calloused and selfish and to use everybody else to try to fill an endless abyss of emptiness inside. That's something that trauma and the world and messages develops. I think that's the grace part. And the truth part, I think that we're talking about is, but even at the end of this verse in 2 Timothy in 3:5, it says, keep far away from them. And this thing of how we're trying to navigate, right? How do we have that truth? How do we identify it? How do we be wise as serpents and innocent as doves? How do we know when to keep away? And so I think that's going to tie into today's discussion. What if you have to be in a relationship with somebody with these traits? But I think that's something that when we talked about the DSM-5 diagnosis in the first week, we've all met people where we see them on TV or on the news, and it just makes us go, ugh. So I think that part, and Jessica, you brought up, a lot of it's the trauma response. And so to have that grace, and then also, as we were talking, how do we also have boundaries? And that's the thing of how do we not try to fix them? How do we not try to heal their wounds? How do we not fall into the love bombing and the gaslighting and that stuff? So I think that just kind of stood out to me as we've been trying to navigate this little balance beam.
So you took all of mine. So because I was, so to get it right, I even looked up DSM-5 to make sure, the disorders and the symptoms. And because what is critical for me to just kind of mention again, as you said, is those 5 opportunities. It has to be greater than 5 opportunities. And I think that's good in that we don't go around trying to diagnose people, because a few years ago when Rich, your husband, Rich, and Pamela and I talked about it, I was like, and that's not my job. That's not what God called me to do. And I was like, you probably could go back and find the videos. I was like, I knew it, and no, compassion, grace, and truth. We don't need to go around figuring out. This is educational. And this is an opportunity for us to be able to recognize that there are opportunities where we need to be educated so that we can be more aware of the opportunities to be involved in these type of relationships. And then over time with, professional assistance, people that are certified and professional experience to be able to recognize and to apply a diagnosis. That's not ours to do. I think that's key. And then also for us to protect ourselves, to see if we recognize within ourselves these traits. And I believe that's where it starts for me, is to make sure as I'm getting in a habit of overcompensating for someone else's behavior. If I'm going out of my way to be pleasing, people pleasing, like not just we should be pleasing, to people, but not to the point that it becomes people pleasing. And why it's to avoid the trauma that may result as a result of it. Does that make sense? Did I say that correct? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are some things that help for me.
And I'll just piggyback on both of you ladies that, I think what Christine said about the fact that this is us having this conversation isn't to turn us all into people who can diagnose a disorder. Everything that we do with Wellness Wednesday is about being sort of a checklist of things I can check in with to know where to start, right? We talk about being intentional about, it's really the place to say when we say to the Lord, Lord, search my heart, search my heart, oh Lord, that so much of what we share on this platform is about giving you a space to let with details that let you process, like, is this going on in my life? Lord, show this, reveal this to me. Is that evident in any way? And when we think about this being trauma related, it's not so we can sit around and diagnose everybody. It's so that we can search our hearts and we can, you know, when we are in challenging spaces and relationships, because like Christine said, week one, the reality is all of us at some point can demonstrate a narcissistic trait, right? And we do, because like I said that in the first week, that reality is we're all wounded. We live in a broken world. We have all had things happen to us that maybe should not have happened, that we didn't have control over, or somebody else's woundedness caused them to treat us in a way that we didn't expect, that we didn't think was fair, that contradicted our beliefs and values and expectations about what should happen to us. And inside of that, we're very self-protective. We have survival mechanisms, and they are very self-focused, because your survivor system in your biological body is wired to protect you and to preserve your life. And oftentimes when those things are unresolved, we get left over with behaviors because our system is still trying to survive those wounded and broken places. And so when we talk about this today, it's really just a place for us to evaluate from. And it's not to say, oh, this is broken, or this is wounded, or this is this. It's just a place to start a dialogue with yourself. And if you find that there's something there of merit, to partner with somebody, partner first with the Lord, but with each other, you know, with someone that is close to you, that you trust. It may be a professional, it may be a pastor, you know, that you can partner with. And I think that's important going into today's conversation, like Christine said, that, you know, we talk about surviving, and I think this is so important for us as Christians, especially because that mandate to love and love well, sometimes that can set some people up when there's not a clarity about being sharp as a serpent while we love, that we can sometimes, in our own woundedness, or even in misinformation about those kinds of things, or in our cultural religious training and things like that, in the theological training we've had. We're not here to say what all is right and wrong today, but we are here to say it's something worth evaluating, because there is a time and a space that God has given us all free will. And there's a thing about partnership and relationship that God has invited you and the person you're in relationship with to be a part of his process. And he's invited each of you to a healing process within yourself with him, so that your relationship can go forward. So I'm going to jump in today. And I'm going to start. Miss Pamela left us a tried and true script, so we're gonna do her good. So even though this week's topic is about surviving a relationship with a narcissist, or one with narcissistic traits, it is possible to do more than survive. It is possible to love and to have a healthy relationship. The caveat is the narcissist has to acknowledge their behaviors and to rein them in. Or, as we say on Wellness Wednesday, they must be intentional about honoring rather than exploiting the persons with whom they're in a relationship. Any thoughts about that initial thought that Pamela shared with us?
I think that I would want to add, not only is a relationship possible, it doesn't only take the person with narcissistic traits to be willing to adjust, but it also takes the other person to be willing to do their own work in the relationship. Otherwise, both people have to own their part. And I think it is possible, even in some relationships where the person with narcissistic traits doesn't own their part, to still have a functioning, maybe not healthy, but a functioning relationship. But I hope we're going to get more into that here. But there's definitely have to be a certain negotiation, not too unlike what somebody does when they have a family member that has a substance abuse or mental illness that's chronic. There has to be a different kind of relationship, which is possible, but I want us to be careful in how we language this, because I don't want us to reinforce dangerous things, I guess is my concern. Yeah.
Sure.
And recognition, and getting to that point of recognition, there has to be accountability. And I think in the relationship, I like how Christine pointed out that narcissistic, I guess it's been defined at this point, is what we're saying, that it's been diagnosed that this is a narcissist. And so if you're in relationship with this person and they've come to the point to acknowledge that they are under this opportunity, this behavior, then there's accountability. You know, sometimes we have a tendency to recognize that people have challenges and we ignore them because we don't want to rock the boat this time or that time. And not to say that you need to point out you're going into your spin, you're having hybrid retirement, you know, an opportunity that you're managing out, you know, you're out of control here. Not that, but the thing that I'm thinking about without going into what I read this morning about a situation is when you see someone spiraling out of control and you're in relationship with them, let the strong bear the infirmities of the weak. We have the opportunity to make sure that some kind of way you highlight it. And I'll look for you ladies to say, how would you approach that? And I don't want to get us too far off script, but there's an opportunity there that we own some of it to say, hey, this isn't, I call it nip it in the bud is what I want to say. But to make sure we highlight that this is a possibility of something that is onsetting that we want to try to avoid. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm clear there to you. Okay.
Well, and I also think that's one of the reasons I just shared the thought about in any relationship, even for us, not in a romantic relationship, you know, if I have a friendship with Christine or with Beth, each of us has a responsibility in the relationship, right? Like I could hurt Christine or I could hurt Beth just as easily as my romantic partner. I know it's more intimate in that space and the vulnerabilities are even more highly increased, but it's that idea that what's in me, the places I've been wounded could wound you or vice versa, or how we receive that information from each other. And so that's why there's such a responsibility for both people to step into themselves, right? Like I have to step in that place with the Lord. You know, if Christine and I get into it, like I have to step into it with the Lord and own what's
Excellent.
here with the Lord, right? I can't own Christine's part in that, you know, no matter what the behavior or the conflict is about. But in that partnership and relationship, Christine has that space with the Lord to say, why was I offended or what hurt me about this? And, you know, is there space in this, you know? And when we've met with the Lord and our ability to come back and communicate that together and get to the core things and to own the parts that are ours and have that responsibility, there's two pieces of that always present in any relationship, but especially in our most intimate relationship with a romantic partner. And so that's the part where we have to evaluate. I was just talking to a client about this yesterday, right? About how all we can do is communicate and own the parts, right? Like, but if we're not doing that, we have to focus on the self. And if somebody is not going to partner or they're not going to own their responsibility, then we have to evaluate what are the boundaries in this relationship, right? So Pamela's question was, discuss how it might be more doable for one with narcissistic traits rather than NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, to be intentional about being mindful of their toxic behaviors or even eliminating them.
Yeah. So if we kind of view the traits as a little line, right? So we've got, and you keep on, the more we add, the more we're heading towards the full-blown diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. And the more you have, the stronger it is. For a person to otherwise have a healthy level of ego strength, but the way that they respond to surprise or pain or negative feedback is that they want to attack or blame or make sure they have no problem. But when they're kind of not activated, they can acknowledge, yeah, I have that, or yeah, I did that wrong or whatever, that it's like a nervous system response reaction. That's a person that's going to be much more easy to talk about and to repair a relationship with than someone who has full-blown narcissistic personality disorder. That's a pervasive, lifelong pattern, because with it comes a lack of insight. When someone truly has narcissistic personality disorder, until they get to the point where there's enough feedback saying you have to get help or else, and that usually comes from work or relationships. And if they get to a clinician that is tenacious and safe and experienced and trained and supported, notice all the things the clinician has to have, so that with time, and that still has to have the willingness to change of the person, they're able to get to the schema. Schema therapy has been shown to be quite effective with narcissistic personality and trauma-based things, where they stay with it long enough to get to those things. You hear all the things that are in place, because research shows that even with traditional therapies, narcissistic personality disorder is a lifelong disorder. And so it's not that I haven't seen, or it's not that I haven't heard or been trained by people who have been very effective in treating that, but it is not a quick fix. It is something that requires getting back to the wounded little person inside. And there are a tremendous numbers of layers of self-defense mechanisms. And the relationship has to be strong enough with the therapist or with the team to weather all of the explosions that will come from the ego of the narcissist, to get past them and all of the different techniques. And then, of course, there are some dark, malignant type of narcissism, which are really unsafe. So we need to make sure that we're clear on that too. There are some folks with this that are very unsafe, hurtful people that almost lack conscience. The difference between somebody with full-blown NPD and antisocial personality disorder is that there still is a conscience, C-O-N-S-C-I-N, conscience with the person with narcissism, while antisocial doesn't have a conscience left anymore. But it can look like there's no shame in NPD because the defensive reactions are so strong. So all of that to say, so much easier to have somebody who's tender-hearted, but their response is something they've learned. Their response is a short flash in a pan, but underneath is a willingness and a desire to still connect, than it is somebody who is farther down this line. And it's to the point where it literally has taken over all the thinking and neural pathways. So there is no connection with others. It is all about self.
You're muted, Beth.
Okay, here I am. Okay, sounds good, Christine. I love it. I think it's a great place to insert a question from the Facebook side of the house. But thank you guys for joining us over there, because we are live streaming into Facebook. And thank you for those that also will watch the replay. But Sherry McClurkin, why aren't you over here? Hello, Tyrese.
We miss you.
But the opportunity is, she stated, wouldn't you say, though, that a strong person is rarely in relationship with someone with strong narcissistic traits? That's a question right behind what Christine says. I thought that is a good question to pose at this time, that it takes a strong person. Don't you think? Can I add something else it takes? Love. I mean, it really does. True love, not, it has to have love the way that is described scripturally. Love is the fruit of the spirit, and it's foundational for any relationship. And it's true agape love that you have to have. And I know that from what Jessica was saying earlier, the recognition of the individual is important, and they have to put the work in, but it also has to have opportunity for whomever's in relationship with this type narcissistic behavior person carrying that behavior, have to love them, truly love them. And if they've made the commitment to put the work in, it can happen. From hearing and listening to some of the opportunities and recognizing everything that you're saying, it can happen with love.
Well, I want to say this to piggyback off that, Beth, because I think what I hear and what Sherry was asking is, a lot of times when people end up, like we talked about this last week with the codependent part of this, is that a lot of times when someone is demonstrating narcissistic traits or even has NPD, so often the attraction is with people who may not have as much ego strength. Like in their woundedness, the confidence may be low, self-esteem, the perception of identity may already be distorted from their own experience. And I think that's where I take away from Sherry's question, that oftentimes people who have really strong ego strength may not put up with the behaviors that are being demonstrated, right? And she's not wrong about that. And I think, it does take love, but I would even venture to say, though, that for a person who has been partnered in this, it's why I said so much of what I've said today is the one place I can start to control my perception of love is I've got to get a hold of God's love for me so that I can know what it is to be loved and be lovable, that I can love someone else. It's that overflow. And so, which is why I said what I said about having to start here, because a lot of times if we're in that place, if I'm already in a position that I haven't had a lot of ego strength, and that's why some of these behaviors have taken over our relationship, I have to start here because it's going to be hard to love that person if I'm not able to love myself. If I'm in a place where that woundedness is happening, and that's why we're having this conversation, because there are times that I can stay in that. And if we're both committed to working through those things, me loving myself so that I can love you better, and you loving yourself so you can love me better is really the root of both of those things. And it's not about just self-love. It really is about receiving the love of God, because in the love of God, we have the ability to see the truth of our identity and know what that love is about. And so I think that's to me why I said what I said about that, because a lot of times Sherry's not wrong. And we talked about that last week. And so that's why it's so critical to be able to evaluate, are we both showing up to the table? And that's where we're going to know, if I'm learning to love myself and God's teaching me how to love you, but you're not committed to that part of the process, how can we build this relationship? And so I think that's part of what we're talking about today. Is like
Thank
we
you
said,
for saying that, because you mentioned another word that it takes is commitment to on both parties. So that was good. And I definitely agree 100% that honestly, you really, and this is Beth Copeland and IMO, let me preface this, you really, really can't love another individual until you have recognized the love of the Father. So I don't hold people accountable that haven't accepted Jesus as their personal Lord and Savior to expect that they need to know how to love. I don't. This is me. Like I said, I am on, because they really can't. And then for even those that have accepted Him and haven't received the true love of the Father and embrace that, it's going to be difficult for them as well. They don't have a clue what you're talking about. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah. For Sherry's question, people who are strong, are they in relationship? I think there is often a pattern for sure. As people do get healthy, they do distance or eliminate toxic relationships from their life. There are some relationships, though, like those with some family members, those with parents when we're still dependents, marriages that people make a conscious cost-benefit analysis for the sake of children, that there is a choice to stay in relationship with them when we're adults. And as adults, we have that choice. As children, we don't, and so especially with family and caregivers. So I do want to honor Sherry's comment that, a lot of us, when we get to a point of strength, sometimes it's our employer or a manager, and we need the job. maybe it's the only job in a town that has the income that we need to provide for our family, and the cost of staying is the fact that we have an employer, manager, supervisor that has narcissistic traits, and so we have to figure out how to navigate those. But yeah, I mean, as people get healthier and healthier, one of the side effects of that is that we tend to distance ourselves from, or even, allow or even cut off unhealthy relationships that do us no good and that don't bring honor to God and that we're not called to stay in. But there are some situations that we do choose to stay in. And then, that's part of this conversation.
Mhm.
There's a question over here. Am I muted again? No. Okay. So there's a question over here that, can you talk more about when someone with narcissistic traits does not acknowledge their behavior and is not self-aware? Tyrese wants to know, how can the person on the receiving end of the relationship proceed?
Yeah, I think first of all, get support. There's no way you can stay in a relationship with somebody with narcissism without you having support. I would say somebody who's a well-trained coach, somebody who's a therapist that specializes, not even, and even most therapists don't understand these dynamics. There's also some terrific books out there, Leslie Vernick's The Emotionally Destructive Marriage. It's from a Christian perspective. Why Am I Never Enough? It's the legacy of narcissistic mothers on daughters. There are some great things that can help you kind of understand. There's more resources than we can even name, but then also getting support, because those are hard choices, right? Is this a relationship I'm choosing to stay in or not? If this is a relationship I'm choosing to stay in, how do I do my work? Because it has to start there. How do God and I do this work? Where is my well-being grounded in? What is truth? When someone tries to gaslight, if someone tries to manipulate, where is my center? Where is truth? And who are my support people? And how do I have that, to go to a therapist to sort through, to go, okay, and usually the things that if we've chosen a relationship as an adult, whether it was because we were as a low time or because this is a pattern that feels like home to us, you need to unpick that. You need to sort that out and unpack that. It is possible to have family members that we choose to stay in connection with that have these traits without it triggering us, without it changing our lives, with us identifying what's happening and saying, nope, that's not true. I know what the pattern of toxicity is going to be. I'm going to stop it. It is possible for us to be strong, severe, and connected, but not without support, not without insight, and not without Christian solid, and not without honestly healing, if that's part of our trauma story. Otherwise, we're just going to get reactivated and triggered over and over and over again.
Right.
So I think it starts with you getting help if you are deciding to stay in relationship with a narcissist when you're an adult and they're an adult. Yeah.
I would agree with that. And Christine, I think you set this up a little bit earlier when you were talking about how oftentimes it takes a lot of layers of accountability for a narcissist to be aware, become aware, take responsibility. It does often, we don't want, none of us loves to want to watch somebody hit rock bottom. That when we love people, that is never what we want to see. But sometimes it's the consequences of behavior that may play out in work, play out in relationships. Oftentimes with MPD can play out in the legal system too. Sometimes it is the summation of some of those consequences and the grief and the loss of those things that brings that person to awareness that something might be there, that they might take the opportunity to be accountable to that. But I completely agree with you, Christine. And I say this to my clients all the time, it's not our fault what happened to us, but it's our responsibility to do something with it. And that's because God never said we couldn't be healed even if the other person doesn't change. That's not in my Bible.
No.
Right?
No.
He said, I can have healing. I can see the goodness of the Lord and the promise of his healing in the land of the living, y'all. I believe that passionately.
I believe it too.
And so I can heal no matter whether you change or not. And I think that's the premise of what's behind that. I absolutely agree that part of that is you have to get people behind you. You have to build a support system, and having the good coach and the good therapist and friends and people who will be honest and truthful, not people who want to breeze past it, because this is hard stuff. And a lot of people, not everybody will sit in the hard stuff, or they might for a little bit, but people who can sit in the hard part about that part of the relationship, but also sit in the hard part about the things that are going on in you, the things that are hurting, and absolutely do I think the solutions come in the healing piece of that.
The patterns that Christine was mentioning is so important to be abreast of, learning those. I'm thinking of extended family members that I know, and I didn't diagnose them. I don't know that they recognize that they need to submit themselves to therapy to be able to understand, but I'm almost certain if they were ever diagnosed, it would be over the top. But what you have to do is what Jessica said, is to understand that I can be healed. And the reaction, understanding the patterns, prevents you from being to succumb to the outburst, because that's the way, in the being caught in the fire of what someone's doing. And I'm telling you, when I tell you extended family, I've got it on either side. And I was a target, and I'm going to be quite transparent. If you're not careful, you start to, when that gaslight and all that stuff starts, you start to look at yourself like, what is wrong with me? I'm not kidding. Years ago, before I knew all of this is why I love Wellness Wednesday, is to educate people, help people. I started to think something was wrong with me. And I mean, we all have our quirks. I love it the way the ladies make sure that we all, and I'm transparent, Beth's out here. I got stuff, but we work on ourselves and we recognize that we've got stuff. But there are people that you will encounter, and maybe not some of your family members, but mine, that would make you think, as I was back then, that I had so many issues, and I was the common denominator, so to speak. But no, it wasn't me at all. And you have to be careful that you don't get caught up in that, because it's detrimental to your well-being.
Well, I'm going to say this real quick, and I want to read this next section since we're kind of already talking about the other side of the coin that Pamela presented here, because I definitely want us to get to the last part. A lot of times, especially with family members, we're all affected. It's one of those things that, just like we know, like with substance abuse, that we talk about it as a family illness. You have the identified patient, but because of the repercussions and the ripples of the illness, it affects almost every member of the family. No one's untouched. And sometimes mental health diagnosis can also be that way. And narcissistic traits and personality disorder are definitely one of those things that we may deal with inside of a family that everyone's going to have a reaction to, because there is hurt. It hurts us. We get treated in a way we don't expect. And so, again, when people are behaving that way, not our fault, but some of the things we're doing to survive may not be so functional for us when they play out in other relationships and things like that. So I want to jump in here. A relationship is a dance. And as you've heard, it takes two to tango. In the case of the persons with narcissistic traits and NPD, the person who loves them has work to do. The first is not to be people-pleasing. So discuss what people-pleasing is, and then identify and articulate other behaviors that must be eliminated in order to be in a healthy relationship with a person with NPD or narcissistic traits. Any initial thoughts?
The first thought is that at its root, NPD is people-pleasing. I mean, narcissism and codependency are the same coin. They're just the opposite sides. I mean, Craig Malkin in his book, Rethinking Narcissism, The Secret to Recognizing and Coping with Narcissists, he talks about how, narcissistic families and cult and systems, there's often the narcissist, but there's also the echo, which they tend to grow up to be this super people pleaser, the being super attuned to the energy in the room, to jumping in and fixing it, and they're like usually the nicest people. Like they're like what we would call the ultimate codependent in some ways. But so my first thought is like, well, people pleasing is something both narcissists and codependents have in common, right? Because that's how both of us, that's how we stay connected, right? That is the codependency of the two. And I think that's the first thing, you talk about when you do couples therapy, saying, what's the dance? And a lot of times you go home and Rich and I will talk and it's like, well, I had a couple today or whatever, and their dance works for them. I wouldn't want their dance, but it works for them, and our dance wouldn't work for a lot of people either, because each people are so unique. And I think that, to have a healthy relationship with someone with narcissistic traits, I think looking to an external locus of control is something that has to be eliminated. And I think that goes, people pleasing is part of it, but looking for someone else to tell me I'm okay, or I'm good, or I'm bad, or what my passion is, or what my vision is, or what my identity is, that has to belong to God alone. And when people are big and God is small, that's the name of a wonderful book that cases this. It's from the CCEF, which is a biblical counseling body. When people are big and God is small, when we have any type of thing where we are looking for someone on the outside or something on the outside to tell us we're okay, it gives all the power to whoever's on the outside. And that really belongs to God alone.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that's probably a big thing that has to be eliminated. And it's something we all struggle with. I mean, we're all in this boat together.
Well, if you're okay with it, Beth, that was a great response. I'm going to go ahead and move into the next part, because Pamela's listed for us 6 things to kind of navigate how we move forward in relationship. And she said one must not only eliminate behaviors, she must also cultivate behaviors as well. And so going to go through, I'm going to read them, and maybe we can each, like, if there's 1 or 2 that stands out, we can kind of give our final closing thoughts about the list or anything particular part of the list. Okay. So she said, 1, we must articulate non-negotiable boundaries. 2, learn the signs of gaslighting. I know we've talked about gaslighting quite a bit. We've talked about it being sort of a false perspective that has an emphasis in blame, usually that you are the cause of the behavior that's occurring. And so detach from emotional outbursts, whether anger or whining. To learn the art of negotiation, to fortify self-esteem and self-soothing, and to cultivate a tight and knowledgeable inner circle. So, Christine, if you want to share your thoughts, and I'll share mine, and then Beth, you can take us out. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is such a fantastic list. And my first thought is, wow, it'd be impossible to do this alone without a positive support system. Like it would be just so impossible to do this without that last one, a tight and knowledgeable inner circle, and support, when those of us who have been raised or partially raised by people with NPD, I'm in this camp as well, the invaluable asset of having strong friends that love God and are healthy, that you have a therapist that can help you pick through, that you have a life coach that is talking with you about the strengths that you have and how you're going to take those forward. And I have a wonderful Christian life coach, and she's just so deep spiritually, and she's also just fantastic with that, and just in different seasons, these different supports are so critical for all of that to talk through with the therapist. Is this a realistic boundary? Like, and is this something that's too tight, too loose? Where am I right now? Do I need to tighten it? Do I need to loosen it? oh, that was gaslighting too. Oh, surprise to me, and some of those things, you're like, oh, I guess that's not a truth. Or how does that slander get started again? I wonder if I could cut that off. When that might give me a little bit of empowerment to say, I'm just going to blast all the siblings and say, hey, you might hear this, but this is what really happened. And some of those little things that you've got to have that support. So my first thought when I read the list is, what a good list. And then I thought, oh, totally impossible without that knowledgeable, tight circle and support system. And also, narcissism is not just a person thing, it can be a culture thing. And we live in a culture that encourages it. Look at the academic system, look at how we get bonuses for high performance at work. So also having people in that circle that can help you pick out God's economy versus Western culture economy and help you pick that out of your spirit is also really beneficial in that support team.
Absolutely. And I would mirror, what you said, Christine, that you can't do this without support. It is all the other 5 before that are absolutely knitted together with the idea of having a knowledgeable and tight inner circle, people that you trust, that you can be completely transparent with, people who can pray with you, people who are knowledgeable about the illness itself. And not every member of that inner circle may be all of the things, but that God will build you a team so that you have all the things you need. Right. And so the other thing I would say is it's critical to have partnership with the Lord, that we have to partner with the Lord, because he is the thing that all the coaching and the counseling, he's the one that brings the fullness of our healing. And Holy Spirit is our companion and our counselor and our peacekeeper and our comforter through those things. And so there's absolutely a partnership in that relationship too, that, because God is the revealer of truth. We can do the work of healing, but he is the one that ultimately allows truth to be revealed to our heart. And so when we're talking about boundaries and being able to recognize gaslighting and emotional outbursts and arts and negotiation, and all of those things are skill sets. We can go and learn more about them. We can be surrounded by people who can teach us those things, help us heal so we can do those things and activate them. But it still comes back to that core of that revelation of love. Because if I haven't had that revelation of love, I'm worth all of this work. I'm worth this support system. I'm worth this because God made me as a place for love to go, because he loved me so much. That it is all under the foundation of that from that, when we get rooted and founded in that, oftentimes setting boundaries becomes easier. Not having our own emotional responses to what's going on and being able to stay not unaffected, but we can stay calm. And if I am affected, I go talk to my support system, because I don't let the emotion carry the moment, right? So that I can be present in that. Those things are rooted in the foundation of the love and the confidence that comes out of our relationship with the Lord.
We haven't talked about it much in this platform, but there are spiritual practices like inner healing prayer where we actually invite the Lord Jesus, back into our traumatic memories. And with a knowledge of his presence, he can rewrite them, and he can help us identify the lies and speak truth over them, because he is the inventor of time. So he's not time bound like we are. And so even some of the spiritual practices, can completely unlock some of the vows that we've made, or some of the strongholds that have been created in those relationships, especially if we had formative relationships with someone with NPD. The Lord Jesus, being outside of time, can go back into any time in our story and redeem it. And so I think that, that of course, in the presence of 2 or 3 brothers and sisters in Christ, is a wonderful way to kick off some of these other things too.
Absolutely. So Miss Beth, I'm going to let you share your closing points and close us out.
I just love this discussion. And you brought up 2 opportunities when I was very, very young, and my father had an extensive library. And I love to read at a young age, and 2 books that found their way into my life that has been very instrumental, although I went on in adult life, in my teenage years, but I went on in adult life to fall you know, into the traps of some of these, but I've got that root within me. And you girls just awakened this morning. I may have mentioned it on times past. The two is Dr. Wayne Dyer, Your Erroneous Zones. I don't know why at 14, 15, I'm reading that book, but I did, you know. And another one, I thought of it just a second ago. I'm Okay, You Okay? Harris, I think. Who is that? I'm Okay, You're Okay. Both of those books, Dr. Harris. I can't think of the whole name with that one, but those two books were so instrumental to me and foundational to awaken in later life this type of teaching. So are you familiar with that work? I know you are, Wayne Dyer, and I can't think of I'm Okay, You're Okay.
Yeah, it is Thomas Harris. I've done quick
Harris.
snapshots. I haven't gone deep dive into either of them.
Okay. But they were so key. And I was thinking, just as I was thinking about that, why didn't I go into certifications in counseling or something? Because I had so many opportunities where my dad, he was just a philosopher, is what people used to say. He had a 5th grade education, but he just was just amazing. But what I'm thinking here and tying this, you girls have done such a perfect job today to close out our month talking about this. The opportunity for us now is to, what I want to say often, and people can say Beth's doing a plug for these counselors, and I am, but that's not my whole intent, is schedule a call. They can do it virtually, you know, or if you're in person, you know, there's Pamela and local to us, and there's opportunity for Jessica. Are you local to Christine? I don't know. We have so many people listening to this broadcast that never say a word, but we know we're helping and we want to help, but we want to help more. We want it to be productive in helping you. This is a good start right here, but I promise you that you cannot get to the root of some of the situations that we've talked about and to receive the healing that is available without scheduling that call. And I'd say that it's a skip dinner out is what it would equate to. You know, just Jerome and I were at dinner the other night and I was like, ooh, okay. You know, so it's worth that to do a checkup on yourself, on your mental, emotional well-being is what I want to say. And these are spiritual counselors, and they can help you from the spiritual standpoint of what God's word says about all of this. So that's what I'd like to use my couple of minutes to say is call them up. They're available to you. And I mean, and don't be ashamed of it either. I mean, be thankful that you have the wisdom to reach out and have someone spend time in that safe place to evaluate the situation and circumstances. I just want to say I highly recommend it. Okay. Okay. So I just had to say that, and they've already told you everything you need to know today. My final comments is just to invite you to visit our website at gcbnetwork.com. We're focused, determined, and intentional to put God back in business. We want you well for your business, total wellness, not just give you business acumen on Tuesday and say, go do business. You are your business. And whatever is impacting you, it's going to impact your business. It's going to roll over. So I just wanted to put that out there today. We'd love to have you as a member. Our membership is totally reasonable. If you're already a member, please join us as a sponsor. Listen, we're doing great work. We're like Nehemiah, huh, Jessica? We're doing a great work and we won't come down. Keep us in your prayers. I mean, thank you, ladies, for your devotion, your dedication, your support, undergirding in more ways than one. And we miss you, Pamela. I know you're going to check us out, so we hope we did good, okay? And we're ending pretty much on time. We started a couple of minutes late. But listen, I want to invite you guys for this Saturday. Great opportunity to join us for an in-person meeting here in Atlanta. Also, you can join virtually. I highly recommend it because we're talking about Woman, see yourself healed. And so if you're a woman that is in business, you need to be from 10 to 2, either on our virtual online opportunity or in person with us. We're going to have Stephanie and Chege, who is the idealist about, she came up with the idea for this. She creates, oh man, is she a creator? Because you get a state-of-the-art vision board kit. It's not a vision board poster kit that's included in your registration. And so we will facilitate learning from that. I get to open us up, and I'm going to talk about, Habakkuk 2:3, write the vision, make it plain. We write it very well. But that part that says, and run with it, we don't run with it so much. So I'm going to help you go from paper, writing it from paper to production. And so I'd love to, I've got a model that God gave me that I'm going to use to show you how my personal vision, and believe it or not, I'm going to talk about Nehemiah. Okay, and how he implemented his vision within 52 days, and how you can do the same thing. So I'm excited about that. And then Carrie Renee Thomas is flying in from Colorado. She was with us at GGG, and she's going to be with us to talk about, once you walk through with me, once you walk through with Stephanie, that healing, now you're ready to be exposed. And she's going to show you about content, how to do the reels, all your content. So you're ready for 90 days of content when you leave there on Saturday. So reach out to us. Let's get you registered ASAP. If you're going to be virtual, today would be the last day for you to receive your kit in time. Okay, so you won't have your kit, but you could go ahead and register, but we got to mail it to you. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Hope to see you next week. We have a guest presenter, Shantae Rowe Bullock. She's going to relax us out. I thought that would be good, Rose and I, to come in for Wellness Wednesday. We call her our vacation lady. Okay. So she's coming back after this tough discussion this month to talk to us from her perspective of what is healing. Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're excited. I love you, ladies. Pamela, we missed you. Take care. Thank you for over on Facebook side of the house. If you're watching the replay, send us a note and let us know you're out there. Take care. God bless you. Bye-bye now, everyone.